Hi, my name is Jacob Miska, and this program is going to be about sound, music, and everything behind it. So quick intro, am a alumni of the 4905 Robotics team back when I was in high school, and now I am a college student at Stevens Institute of Technology. And I've been participating in music groups and been playing music and interested in the science behind it for as long as I can remember. So when you think about sound and music, I'm sure everyone has their favorite musician that they think of immediately, whether it's Justin Bieber or it's Drake or it's whoever you listen to, doesn't matter. Everyone's got something in mind. But to really understand the things behind music, you first have to understand sound. So what is sound? Sound is made up of vibrations. Vibrations that move really, really fast and shakes the air all around it. So when you think of things that make sound, what do you think of? Some things might be like a vacuum cleaner, or a speaker that plays music, or an instrument, or like a train passing by off in the distance. All of these things have the same thing in common. They all have some sort of vibrations where they shake really fast and it creates noise. These vibrations are what is the source of the sound. So now something cool. If you don't believe me that sound is made up of vibrations, I want you all to hum to yourself, like go really loud. And if you hum and then touch your throat, you can feel the vibrations in your fingers. That's because your throat is vibrating, making the sound of your voice. That's how people sing, that's how people talk, and that's how the basis of making sound yourself. So you might be asking yourself, if sound is made up of vibrations, which is something you feel, how is it you can hear sound when you're so far away? Well, the vibrations that sound is comprised of shakes the air right around it. So the air shakes really fast and then creates waves that travel through the air. And these sound waves that travel through the air can go for miles before reaching your ears. And your ears are where you sense the sound. So when sound travels through the air, it looks just like waves in the water. So for example, if I were to take this football and throw it into this pool, it creates waves. See how there's waves now coming out from the football, and they travel all the way down the pool. That's what sound looks like in the air, except it moves much, much faster. 700 miles an hour around, in fact. So that's why when you see thunder and lightning, the light goes really fast. You see it right away, and sound takes a little bit longer. But the speed of sound is something that scientists can observe, just like we can watch the waves in the pool. Okay, so you understand how sound works, kinda. You understand that the vibrations create these sound waves that travel through the air, just like waves in a pool. However, what makes different sounds sound different? Some sounds are louder or softer, or higher or lower, and it totally depends on the sound waves and the shape of the sound waves. Well, the volume of the sound, or how loud something is, depends on how big the sound wave is. So something that's really big, like a train, might make a much louder and bigger sound wave than something like a bee that's flying around and has a small buzz. They call the size of a sound wave the amplitude. That's also why they call a guitar amp an amp, because it amplifies the sound or makes it louder. It's something that you'll see all over the place, but amp, amplify, all these things pretty much mean make it bigger, make it louder. How big is it? All to do with sound. The pitch, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Instead of how big the sound wave is, it's how fast it is or how fast something is shaking. That's what creates a high-pitched sound. So something like a whistle shakes really, really, really fast, and that creates really skinny sound waves. And this creates a high pitch. Something like, whereas low-pitched sounds vibrate a little bit slower. The slower vibrations create longer sound waves, and these longer sound waves create much lower sounds. Something like a big bass drum hitting in the back of a song. That is a low sounding pitch. Okay, so now that we kind of understand sound, what we're going to do is make our own sound maker, or a little buzzer. And all you need is a straw and a pair of scissors. So what you're going to do to make your little buzzer is you're going to take this straw and you're going to cut at an angle like this, like a 45-degree angle. Snip that off like that. So now you have this. So it's at an angle. And now what you're going to do is you're going to do it on the opposite side. So spin it around and cut it just like that. So you've got yourself a little point at the top of the straw. And that's it. That's all you have to do to make a little sound maker. And now you want to make sure that you've got it where it's as even as you can get it. So you want to cut it like this. And again on the other side. So you've got yourself a point at the top. And then all you have to do is you put it in your mouth and you press your lips together a little bit, and then you blow through. You want to make sure that air is passing through the straw. When you do that, you make sounds. It's a little buzzer. It's super easy to make, and it's really fun to annoy your friends with it. So now that you've seen how to make it, pause the video, try it yourself, cut your straw, find the point. If it takes a couple tries to get the sound out of it, don't worry about it. It takes takes a little bit of practice to get the best sound you can out of it. But once you do, trust me, it's really fun to play around with. Okay, so now that we've made this, you might be wondering, okay, how does this work? So, with our little straw, you can see that there's these two little flaps. And what you're doing is when you blow the air through the straw, when you press it together, these little flaps vibrate. Now this vibration, just like we said, vibration creates sound. So that vibration is what is the source of our sound. If you want to make it a higher pitch, you can make it shorter, or if you want to try to make it a little bit lower, you can try to keep the straw as long as you want. But that is what creates this sound and why this little buzzer works. Okay, so you've been able to make sound out of these straws, but you might be wondering, how do you make sound into music? Because that straw didn't sound very musical, if you ask me. So you have to think, what is music? Well, music is just a bunch of sounds that are put together that sound really nice. But what makes sound nice? Well, it's a combination of two things. The first is the tone. So if it's really rough sounding and in your face, it might not sound that great. But the thing that really makes music is changing the pitch, or how high or how low the sound is. Changing the pitch and the tone of these sounds is what your brain hears as music. Now, the reasoning behind your brain liking the sounds of music is a little bit complicated. And if you're more curious about it, you can do some research on your own and look up the science behind your brain liking the sounds of music. But I don't have enough time to get into that today. However, your brain likes the sound of things like music because of a whole bunch of different reasons that all stem behind the changing of pitches and tones and volume, like we've been talking about so far. So if we want to make music, we have to ask ourselves, how do we control sound? Well, there's two main ways that you can control sound. The first is digitally, so using a computer or computer software. So digital sound is created by computers coming up with code that creates a pitch and tone and volume and music to play, and then it puts it through speakers. So speakers work by vibrating very precisely to replicate the music that is stored on the computer. This is the most common way to listen to music nowadays with TVs, phones, stereos, you name it. Everything now has speakers in it that makes sound for music that's digital. If you can, pause the video here and either find a speaker, like a Bluetooth speaker that you might play music out of, or your phone, or even if it's a TV, turn up the volume really loud and just lightly touch on the device that's playing the music. And you'll feel the vibrations and how the vibrations change as the music's playing. So maybe if there's a big beat in the background of the music, you'll feel the hits every time there's a beat. That's part of the music. The vibrations create this loud sound that you get to listen to as music, but totally feels different when you're just holding it in your hand. The other way to make music is, instead of digital, acoustically, or using instruments, not using a computer, not using speakers, but using things like guitars or trombones or a piano. These are all acoustic ways of making sound. So these instruments all use vibrations in their own different way that creates different sounds, pitches, tones, and creates this amazing music when you put them all together. Music really started this way, using acoustic sounds, whether it's banging on a drum or playing the piano. If you think of old orchestras and classical music, all of it's acoustic because they didn't have things like computers and speakers back then. Take, for example, this penny whistle. So a penny whistle is really similar to like a recorder that you may have seen before. All you have to do is blow into it and it creates this whistling sound. But here's the thing, a penny whistle doesn't just make one note, right? It makes a lot of different notes, different pitches, higher to lower. So the way it works is you cover up these holes to keep the air trapped in the instrument when you're playing it. So when you don't cover it, it's fairly high. But when you start covering holes, it gets lower. Now you might be wondering why that is. How is it something with the same size can change the pitch so easily? Well, when you're covering the holes, you're forcing the air to stay inside of the instrument. So at the start, you're making it vibrate only up to this hole. But if I were to cover to this hole, I'm now making it vibrate from here all the way down to here, which makes the note much lower. I'm not only vibrating the whistle, but also the air inside of it, which is how it moves the sound all the way to your ears. Now, this process is how all wind instruments in general use this concept. They're vibrating the instrument and the air inside the instrument in order to create this sound. And the longer distance and more material that the instrument has to vibrate, the lower the pitch is going to be. And even though the penny whistle is such a small and goofy looking instrument, you can play little fun things, like you might recognize this. See? Another instrument that uses the same concept is a trombone, a much bigger instrument, but it uses the same principles behind it. So if you start at the top, as making the length of the instrument as short as you possibly can, you make a sound. That's one pitch. It's a lot bigger than the penny whistle, so it's a lot lower. And then, if you want to change the pitch, you slide out the slide, which makes it even longer. So this longer distance that the air has to travel, and the longer the instrument is that you have to vibrate, the lower the note is going to be. So if I were to change the length here, For example, when you push out the instrument slide like this, so it gets even longer, the note gets lower. And then if I bring it back and make it shorter all over again, it gets higher. So even though the trombone and the penny whistle are two completely different sizes, totally different instruments, you would very rarely see them next to each other, they use the same principles and science behind them. Okay, so next what we're going to do is make our own musical instruments. Not just noisemakers, but pitch-specific musical instruments. And the way we're going to do that is by taking spoons and hitting them on the top of glasses. Lightly hitting them on the top of glasses. What you're going to need for this activity are 3 glasses. The ones that you find in your kit are best, but if you don't have them, I will explain how to use different glasses later on. And you'll need 2 spoons is preferable. If not, 1 is fine. And some sort of measuring cups. The least you're going to need are, at a minimum, you need a 1/4 cup and a teaspoon. But to make it easiest, you're going to want a full cup, a 1/2 cup, and a 1/4 cup and a teaspoon, or something like this where you can measure out the exact amount you need in a measured fashion where it shows 1 cup, 1/2 cup, 1/4 cup, and a teaspoon. So those are the different options you can have for the measurement capabilities. But other than that, you need these materials and some water, and that's it. So the first thing you want to know when making glass instruments is, 1, you have to be very careful because you don't want to drop the glasses or hit the glasses too hard. You can hit them very lightly and they sound very nice. The other thing is, when we add water to the glasses, they get lower in pitch, which might seem against what you think. However, when you add water to a glass, see how this one with water in it sounds a lot lower. The reason for that is because the water inside of the glass is slowing down the vibrations that's occurring in the glass. There's more material that the glass has to move when it's vibrating, so it slows it down and makes a lower pitch. Notice how this one's much lower than these two. So for this activity in specific, we are going to learn to play 2 different songs. Very basic ones that I think you might have heard of before. The first one is Mary Had a Little Lamb, and the second one is Hot Cross Buns. But you are making your own instruments here. So the way that we want to do this is, first, the first glass you're going to keep empty. You don't want to touch that one. That one's, boom, check. You've already made it that far. The next one, in the middle, you're going to want to add 1 1/4 cups and 3 teaspoons of water. So, let's break this down here. The first thing you're going to want to do is either measure 1 cup or 1 cup and 1 of these of water. If you're using the classic normal measuring cups, you're going to want to start out with the 1 cup and pour it carefully inside of the glass. Try not to spill anything if you can. We want to be just as precise as we can with the measurements. You can use this type of measurement too. And if you're going to use this type of measuring device, you're going to want to measure straight up to a 1 1/4 cups. But since we are using the smaller ones here, these measuring cups, the next step you're going to want to do is fill up a quarter cup and add it into the glass as well. So now we have a quarter cup, and we're going to add that in. Awesome. Now we have to add 3 of these teaspoons. They're small amount of water, but the little bit can make a big difference in the sound. Okay, so once you've added the 3 teaspoons of water into the glass, it should sound something like this. So this note is one full note below the empty cup. So you can hear the difference. This one's much lower than the first one. That is cup number 1 all set. If it doesn't sound quite right, I'll go over how to fix that in just a minute. Next, for the last cup, we're going to want to put in 1.5 cups plus 2 teaspoons. Very similar to the last one, where we have to start off by measuring either 1 cup, a half cup, and 2 teaspoons, or this time I'll use this as an example, and we need to get a cup and a half out of this and then add 2 teaspoons in with our little teaspoon spoon. Okay, now that we've measured a cup and a half, we're going to pour it into our last glass. Again, try to be careful and not to spill if you can. Next, we add our 2 teaspoon size measurements. Okay, so once you've added the last 2 teaspoons into this glass here, you should have a full set of 3 notes. So it should sound something like this. Now these 3 notes are enough to play Hot Cross Buns, Mary Had a Little Lamb, or any other 3-note song that you could think of. So, is your goal. Now, if it sounds a little off, I'll go over how to fix it now. If your glasses don't sound the way you think they should, you can tune them by going to a website online called the Online Metronome, or using a tuning app on your phone. On the screen, you can see a couple different ways to use this. You can go online here using the website on the screen, and then with a microphone, if you have one on your computer, it will listen to you playing the note, something like this. And then it can tell you what note your cup is. If it says when you open the website that the website wants to use your microphone, select Allow. That way it will be able to use your microphone to hear what you're playing, and then you can tune your cup. So the notes that you want are E for the highest one, D for the middle one, and C for the lowest one. If your cup sounds too high-pitched, you want to add more water. More water will make the sound lower. If you want to make a note that's too low sound higher, you can do the same thing by taking away water. This is also how you can use different cups. If you don't have the kit or want to use different cups and want to expand and add more notes to your lineup, you can grab new cups and tune them this way to whatever notes you want. For the sake of our exercise though, we'll stick with the 3 notes E, D, and C. At this point, you may want to pause the video and rewind and look at this step by step so you can get the right measurements and figure out exactly how to get the sound right where you want it. And then you can do this. And this is how you play Mary Had a Little Lamb. See? Easy as that. The music for this is going to be shown on the screen now. So if you want to stop, and you can either rewind and watch how I did it to learn, or you can read the sheet music if that's something you're more comfortable with. The same thing can be done for Hot Cross Buns. You might recognize this tune as well. The same thing here. I will post the music for this on the screen, and you can either stop and read the sheet music, or you can rewind and watch me do it to try to learn yourself. And if we want to, you can find different glasses or more glasses and expand upon it and make even more notes. And play even more songs. So now that you have a general understanding of what harmony is and what it means, you can hear it when you play two things together, how some notes sound good and some don't. That doesn't sound good, but when you start doing, sounds super nice. That's because of harmony. The last thing you guys should all know about music is that music isn't just one note at a time. Music would be kind of boring if only one note could be played at any point in time and sound good. So that brings in harmony. So what is harmony? Harmony is the way that two notes interact, and if they sound really nice or if they don't sound good at all. And that really depends on the spacing and the way the sound waves interact with each other. Sound waves of different pitches, remember, have different frequencies is what they call it, where it's either shorter or longer sound waves. If these sound waves are the same length, they sound nice together because it's the same note. But if they are slightly off, they sound very bad because the sound waves hit each other in ways that they don't want to hit. So this creates what's like this creates a distortion effect, and that makes your brain think that it sounds bad, and that's why we don't like it. Distortion can be used in music to its advantage, but for the majority of the time, you don't want this distortion in your music because it sounds uncomfortable. But when two sound waves line up with each other in a way, even if the lengths aren't the same, if they line up every 2 waves or every 4 waves, it might sound good. And that is what harmony is. It's different length sound waves mixing together in a way that sounds good because they don't clash with each other and make a distortion sound. This harmony is what makes the basis of music and makes things called chords. Chords are combinations of notes that make harmony together. And when you play 2 notes together, that can create a chord. So an example of this is shown with these glasses here. Once you start getting harmony down, you can start really playing around and get some cool stuff in there. Playing 2 notes at a time with the 2 spoons really opens up the door to play music. That's it for me, guys. But keep playing around with the different notes and harmonies that you can make out of these glasses. You can learn whole new songs, You can learn different chords to play on them, and it just is really fun. It's really cool, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video.